Alrighty. Welcome along, everyone, to our live today or tonight, depending on where you are in the world. So you'll see that I am joined by Dario, and very shortly I'll get into some official introductions. But we will just wait for a minute for everyone to roll on in and arrive to our class one of our Consultation Masterclass. So as you are all joining us, please do let us know where you are tuning in from. So we'd love to hear whereabouts in the world you are today and also what industry you are working in. So whilst you're all joining us, please just drop in a few comments. And if you do have questions as we go, Dario is going to be back with us for the next 8 weeks. So we will be able to work our way through some of those as well. So do drop them into the comments and I will keep an eye on them. If you do see me looking down, that's just me keeping an eye on all of you with us tonight. Awesome. So we are 7 p.m. on the dot. Now, everyone, welcome along. Now, good evening if you are in New Zealand or Australia, and good morning if you're joining us from the UK. Thank you so much for joining us for our first ever Consultation Masterclass on Who is Dario. So very shortly, we are going to dive into all the good content. But just before we do, I wanted to let you all know that this is going to be a class that happens every Wednesday night or morning if you're in the UK for the next 8 weeks. So I'm going to be joined every week by Dario Cotroneo, who you can see with me here. And it will be the two of us working through this content that we have to share with you. So awesome. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Lou, and my role at Timely is to manage all of the social media, which includes presenting on live chats and interviewing lots of fabulous industry experts. So over the past 2 years of working here, I've worked very closely with a number of businesses, helping them make that move across to software, across to Timely. And it's really been through doing this work that I've developed a pretty solid understanding for the industry and a love for the industry as well. So that is a wee bit on me. Now, I'm absolutely delighted to say that this is the launch of our brand new series, and I'm joined by the Master of Client Consultations and multi-award-winning hair educator, Dario Cotroneo. So yes, 8-week series happening the same time every week. So that is going to be 7 p.m. in Australia Eastern Time. It's 9 p.m. in New Zealand, and this particular week, 9 a.m. in the UK, but from when you've got daylight saving, that will move to 10 a.m. So we are going to be talking about all things hair inspiration, motivation, tips and tricks, and of course, everything around consultations. So our very first class today, you'll be finding out just who is Dario. So just very briefly before I do hand over to Dario, Dario formed DCI Education back in 1998. And since then, he has been in demand all around the world. So he has been working in the USA, UK, Europe, Australia, and New Zealand, demonstrating his unique and singular brand of education. So if you have met Dario, and if you have been to any of his education, put your hand up and let us know, because we would love to hear from you. So without further ado, we'll dive straight into it. So who is Dario?
I feel like this is like someone that really close to me is asking this question. By the way, you did a great job. Great job. You got great energy, Lou. Great energy.
Oh, thank you. That's very kind. Now, I'm just going to check. Can everyone see my big purple screen?
Yeah.
Yes? Beautiful. Dario, you've got that in front of you?
Awesome.
Yeah. Awesome. All right.
Okay. Ready to go. So look, firstly, I want to say thank you for having us here, and thank you for Timely for embarking on this journey. It started off with a conversation, and you know where we're at now with every week planned out all the content and special surprises for both of our communities. So really what we want to do here is, the question is, you know, when we started talking with the guys at Timely is, well, what's my background and what type of experience do I have? And we felt that the best way to start this series was to just share some of my experience and really give some, you know, learnings in that 31 years that I've had as a hairdresser. And a quote that I've got on screen: if you're not having fun with what you're doing, then you're doing it wrong. Because for me, hairdressing is a lifestyle, and it's about learning to have a lot of fun in it. And that only generally comes when you develop some self-confidence and self-worth in terms of your skill set. So we'll go to the next slide. We'll get started, embark on this beautiful journey. Okay, so yeah, 31 years, started in 1989 as a 14-year-old. I got into hairdressing by default. My two sisters are hairdressers, and my father wouldn't let my sisters go to a L'Oreal seminar in the city. And a gentleman by the name of Frank Burgermeister was doing that seminar. And my sisters begged me to go to the seminar. I went and reluctantly sat up the back with my arms crossed, with my back up against the wall, thinking, who are all these creative people? And by the end, on the way home, I asked my sister's boss for a job because I was so inspired. I'd never been anywhere in my life where I'd been captivated with what someone was doing creatively, but most importantly, how passionately Frank was. And then I asked my sister's boss for a job part-time, but don't pay me, because I didn't want to get fired at 14, because you can't really fire me if I'm not getting paid. And then 3 months later, they introduced me to the best salon in the area. And that was a salon called FMK. And, you know, a lady called Tanya Mancini, which is one of my closest friends still 31 years later. So, yeah.
So was that 3 months after? Was that not very long at all?
No. And I did kind of lie on my first day, because, I mean, I didn't lie. I had cut half my finger off just through here. And when I first started as an assistant, when I wasn't getting paid, and I was doing homemade salamis with my family, and my hand went through the mincer.
Oh,
and yeah.
Quite a crucial tool as well, you know?
Yeah. And so I had stitches there, and I was told not to put, you know, to be really careful about putting my hand underwater for a long period of time. And so when I started on that first day in 1989 in that salon 3 months later, I was cleaning part of the salon. The other girl that was on trial was cleaning part of the salon. And I thought, I've got to do something different here to get this job. So I lied and said I can shampoo. Which I couldn't. Yeah, and I just washed the whole front of my top, my jeans, everything was wet. And I did whisper to the older lady that I was doing. I thought she was about 90, but she was probably about 50, because I was about 40. I was about 14.
Yeah. Changes the way when you're that young, isn't it?
You know, I thought she was about 60, but I thought she was about 90, but she was probably around 50, 60. And so I whispered in her ear on the way to the basin, this is my first shampoo, because she's a lovely lady. And her name was Nancy Bedesta. And Nancy saved my job, because when I wet her, unfortunately, she did say it was her fault, not mine. Even though I clearly was wet as well. Yeah, so a big shout out. I did a seminar 15 years ago, and I mentioned Nancy's name, and Nancy goes to that salon still. And I went, oh my God, she's still alive. How amazing. You know,
that is gorgeous.
That's how I started. So we'll go to the next
one. Friend, huh? From the get-go.
Yeah, and I just thought, reflecting back, I learned the beauty of being vulnerable, but also being really honest. It is what it is. I was 14. I've got a daughter that's 15 that's now working part-time. And I shared with her, look, if you make a mistake, you just have to go, well, I'm only 15 and I love what I do, and it is what it is. You know, all that anxiety as a 14-year-old, messing around with your head.
It's a very young age to begin on this journey as well. I think, you know, for 14 years old to get sort of into the workforce is quite an early stage to really get into that. So that was the start. Yeah. This was the beginning, the journey into hairdressing.
Yeah.
Alrighty. So are we ready for next slide?
Ready to go. Yeah, so with Tanya, and you know, I started my apprenticeship in 1990. So I left school at the end of year 9, and that was purely because Tanya offered me an opportunity to start as a first year. So I basically went to TAFE with my sisters, and we all enrolled together as first years. So the 3 of us were going through our apprenticeship together. Tanya was the most amazing boss. She believed in me more than I believed in myself. I went to my sister won an award, I think, within 6 months, and I didn't realize you can win awards still and trophies. And so that really hooked me in. And you know, Tanya trained me at 7 o'clock in the morning and stayed back till, 7, 8 at night. And my first award that I won was the first competition I went in. Wow. Yeah, and that's the only trophy I have at home, by the way, inside my wardrobe, that I have a conversation.
What was that award for, that very first one?
It was like junior ladies blow drying. So it was like first year blow drying. And it was
Amazing.
it was the most beautiful Sassoons cut that Tanya did. And again, if Tanya's watching, is Tanya Mancini, I love you. You know, she put so much energy into me, and you know, my parents were in the audience. It was in Canberra, and it's a trophy shaped out of Parliament House. And I have a conversation with his trophy every morning, and I thank my past self for working hard. It's a bit of a gratitude talk that
Lovely.
Yeah. And then I won about 40 trophies. And then from there, a guy called Neil Osborne, a beautiful man, walked into the salon and said, I've got this great product that Tony and Guy is launching, and that's called TG, the TG Linear. And he had this bottle that was called Pure Gloss, and he opened it up to me and said, you know, I'd like you to try this. What do you think? And I tried it and I loved it. It was silicone and this beautiful product, because everything was very heavy gelled back then. And then he invited me to be on the creative team. And so, yeah, and that took me from going into awards. Awards really built a platform for, I suppose, awareness and, you know, getting myself out there. We didn't have social media back then, so we had to be seen. And then...
And would that, yeah, I mean, like, I guess talking about just very briefly, like not having social media and being seen, was that just networking wherever you could?
Yeah.
And really creating the relationships with the people that you did meet, that you did encounter.
Yeah, and I jumped on every opportunity when I was younger to really get involved in teams as far as creative teams. So we had Educator back then, we had IHS, and anytime they talked about new talent, I was jumping on and saying, I'll collaborate and we'll do. And I was working with really great people. I mean, people that I work with, collaborated with back then around the world and doing really well in hairdressing and still going strong. So that opportunity with TG was a really interesting one. You know, we got to this hotel in King's Cross to launch it, and Neil had brought, you know, some outfits for us to wear, or so not some outfits, like a vest, and one hairdresser in particular really got challenged by wearing that vest because he had a huge ego, and he went, oh, I'm not going to dress like that. So he sat out of that whole, which gave me a massive opportunity to really share my skill set. And I was quite grateful that he had a huge ego, because it gave me more of a platform. And I think we're challenged with these opportunities in life that could scare us, and we can use excuses, or we can just leap into them. And then that led me to Tony and Guy in Australia, and where I became an educator when Tony and Guy opened up in '95. That was probably the best years of my career, because I could actually start to see what I had trained for. I still hadn't seen the fruits of all that training other than trophies. You know, to work at Tony and Guy and do the bartering system and do the training, I was trained by a beautiful guy called Ben Cook, based in London. And Ben was so patient with me and just, yeah, really kind, and developed some really lifelong friendships there. And then, yeah, after about 2 years of working at Tony and Guy, I really wanted to move into the world of magazines. Session work was just starting. Back then you had to do hair and makeup. You couldn't do one or the other.
Oh, interesting. They like singular person, both hair and makeup.
Yeah. You had to around 95, 96, we were doing a lot of fashion shows. I was assisting a lot on shoots. And then I just felt that I really wanted to go out on my own and start exploring what it's like to do hair on magazines and TV commercials. And yeah, so I left Tony and Guy, went to a salon called Helmet, which was the best salon in Sydney, architecturally and clientele. It really helped me with the type of clientele. It was a very sophisticated clientele. Tony and Guy was very edgy. It was beautiful. It was very fashion forward. But coming from putting the two together really helped me understand that the type of clientele that would really support my life and my lifestyle, and looking at long term versus clients that were quite transient. And so, yeah, magazines was amazing. So I'll get you to the next slide.
Awesome. Now let me just quickly touch on. So I was going to ask, when you were just mentioning about trophies, 40 trophies, and then obviously alongside trophies, there's been obviously other achievements around getting to work with magazines, Tony and Guy, things like this. Now, if you could say what your best achievement was to date, what would you give us?
Obviously my 2 kids, you know.
Oh,
yeah.
That's gorgeous.
A 15-year-old and 11-year-old. So you know, we're pretty tight as a family. You know, meeting my wife really in that stage that I was just talking you through, that's when I met my wife.
1996.
I would have met Veronica in 96.
Yeah.
And I was 21, she was 26. And, you know, I was very much into my career, and she was very patient to allow me the space to
supportive. Amazing.
Yeah. So, I mean, I suppose at that stage, working for Tony & Guy was probably the biggest thing in my career, and doing bartering. And thanks to Dennis Langford that runs Tony & Guy for that opportunity. And again, the people that I work with, it was, you know, it was probably the best. If I look back at my 31 years, the talent that I work with in that salon was phenomenal. I don't think I'll ever come close to that type of talent. Like I work with Nick Owen, which is based in the UK, Clive Allwright, which is based here, is one of my close friends, you know, Leon Gorman, based in America, and, you know, I can keep going on through names, but just really, really talented. Marie Kovacs in the UK. And you know, watching what the standard, every haircut was a performance. It was really different. It wasn't like getting through the day. It was actually about creating art every 45 minutes. And
wow.
You know, it was really amazing. Every client walked out, looked like they walked out of a page in a magazine. And
you must have hit the pillow so hard at the end of those nights.
Yeah, I was young, so you know, you didn't really rely on too much sleep back then. It was
yeah.
And I got an apartment just around the corner from the salon, so yeah, it was all good.
Good. Cut out a little bit of transport time.
Yeah. I was living with my parents till I was 21, and it would take me 2 hours to get to the salon and 2 hours to get.
Yeah, wise move then.
Yeah. Just to share with people how passionate hairdressing was. We would have a staff meeting at 6 o'clock every Saturday night that went for about 40 minutes to an hour. And that's when the whole team was on and everyone was together. And it wasn't about money. It was just about how much did we make for the owner of the salon, and did we achieve our goals as a team creatively as well as financially for the owner. It wasn't about us. It was because we felt that we were getting fed in a creative way.
Right. Yeah.
And that can only last for a certain period of your life. So, you know, and so hence why I moved on and started magazines. And in 98, when I left Tony & Guy, I didn't really want to teach anymore. I really wanted to focus solely on education. Back then it was, you know, kind of seen as old fashioned to talk about, you know, you're a teacher, you're an educator.
Okay.
So I just didn't want to do it. And then my friend, a friend of mine that ran Redken at the time, just constantly begged me to do a seminar. And she was the general manager. And I said, I'm not interested. And it was about 3-4 months. And she said, look, you know, you can do whatever you want, And she tickled my ego. And I got a really good friend called Shari Reynolds to do the color work. And in the audience was a lot of my old clients that I had taught. And one of them was, SG Hair, and Sharon Blaine was in there. And, you know, and so you end up, you know, that then got me into educating. And then we thought, okay, we'll do education, but more sustainable. I wanted to create shapes and haircuts that were very much within our climate, within Australia and New Zealand. We're very outdoorsy here, and we're very much about lifestyle. And I wanted to create shapes that really suit that lifestyle. And so we came up with DCI, Dream, Connect, Inspire, and created a brand that we didn't really know how far it was going to go, but it just felt right. You know, it just felt right. It was the right thing to do. And it was great. It was really great. I just can't believe it was back then. It just feels like it was yesterday that we started this, which was, You're in your 20s, enjoy every moment. Take as many photos.
Now, we're talking about this as well, and I guess you've sort of covered it here, but if you would say the real push there, that push to start that DCI education, and I guess what it was that inspired you to do that, because obviously you're saying that you were at that point where you were so ready to finish up with that, and then having people being like, come on, please. Was it just the healthy peer pressure, let's say, of, you know, friends, or was there something inside there? What was that inspiration for you?
Yeah, well, the night that I did that seminar for Redken, my models were like, they're really well known now as in New York, this really great stylist, like everyone that was my model that night became something. So we put a lot of work into the type of people we were collaborating with that night. The energy of that seminar was amazing. But it was Katrina Gallo. She now works at Belons, but she worked at SG Head. Katrina, I taught, she's very passionate, Katrina, and she really just stalked me at Helmet and just kept on persisting, please come out and train our staff. And I did
really seen something there.
Yeah, and I just said, all right, I'll do one session. And I went out and we had fun, and then we booked another one. And 6 years later, I'm still teaching SG Hair.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, they're like family. They're absolutely family. The way they look after each other. And then, my second client was Sandy Chong. I used to cut Sandy's hair back then as well.
Brilliant.
And Sandy, I traveled to Newcastle for I think 13 years every month. And my third client was Sharon Blaine, and I taught Sharon's staff for about 10 years every month.
Wow.
But I really kept it hush-hush on magazines. I never told anyone I taught. I was very paranoid of everything.
Why was that, to keep it so hush-hush?
When you're in fashion, you've got to be a purist. You can't dilute the message. So if I felt that I'd be in some way distracted,
right,
or creating a sense that I'm distracted. I just felt in that world, it was a very cliquey world. I've never taken drugs in my life, and I don't drink alcohol. So when you go as a young 20-year-old into an environment that's very insecure and very about image, the last thing I want to do is to talk about me teaching, and their thought of a teacher would be TAFE or something like that. And I didn't want to ruin the image, but I was trying to shape for my career.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I'm quite interested as well on how you say, with there being this sort of stigma around being an educator or a teacher back then. Obviously, that's changed quite a lot when you look at what it is now. And even where education is going, when do you think there was that turning point? Was there something that made that shift in the industry to switch that perception?
Yeah, the shift was technology.
Yeah.
I remember, which I'll get to in these slides, but I remember, when the launch of the iPad, I was in Paris meeting the heads of L'Oreal with my iPhone showing a video with the iPhone. My mum happened to send a message, good luck for your meeting, in front of the heads of L'Oreal.
Oh, yeah. Just to make me human,
notifications off. Like I just went, and but yeah, technology and social media. Back then you had to work. Your salon as a salon owner, you had to be on a high street. You had to be somewhere very visible. Paris is very different. A lot of the salons were upstairs because the rents are so expensive downstairs. But that's cool.
Yeah.
But within Australia and New Zealand, you really, put your salons on a high street. In Sydney, it was Darlinghurst or Paddington's where you came for a good haircut. And technology changed that. You could be in Campbelltown, Penrith, and you can have the best social. And you can say, on social, this is where they do great hair here.
Yeah, you're right. It has changed that.
That's what changed, essentially.
Yeah. Discovery has just become so much more accessible. But
which is great. I really embrace that.
Yeah.
Awesome. I'll give you the next slide, and then I'll walk you through some of the beautiful moments. So then in 1999, I got this great opportunity to go to London. So I went over to London, and it was my first trip to Salon International in London to check it out. And, really just to understand, what's going on over in terms of the hair world over in the UK. And then I flew from the UK. A friend of mine was a backup dancer for Cher in London at that time.
Wow.
And he kept on saying, oh, you can meet her tomorrow night. I really wanted to catch up with him, but my trip was getting so delayed. I just went, I'm not really a big Cher fan. Because I needed to be in New York. That's where I wanted to be. And
I can't believe you turned that down.
Yeah, I did. Because I was like, he kept on saying, oh, tomorrow night. And I was like, no, I really can't take one more day out of my trip. Because I had about a month and a half off work, which is really for a hairdresser. And so I went to New York, and the minute I touched down in New York, I just felt this is where I need to be. And my friend, one of my closest friends in New York, a guy called Stephen Dimmick, he has the most amazing story. And I'll quickly share it. He won't have a problem with me sharing it. Stephen left Australia, sold everything, went to New York 2 years prior, and basically got into one of the best agencies. And within 3 months, had done the cover of Vanity Fair and done Anna Wintour's makeup for an event. And,
Wow.
you know, he was flying, as you do in New York. It's like, you know, when you find that lane, and it's an express lane in New York. And then he went and did a job, and he was quite relaxed, and Americans didn't know how to take our humor. And when he got home, there was a voicemail on his answering machine saying he's no longer represented by that agency.
Oh.
Yeah. And so that's how, you know, and so when I went to New York, I was staying with Stephen, and he was still really struggling to come out of it, because to go from the top agency and to try, there's no openings in these agencies.
Do you think that was like, you know, I feel like Australians, New Zealanders, quite sarcastic, like that sort of thing. Just not, interesting that it was such a really like a cultural barrier almost, really, isn't it?
He was looking after one of the most high-profile fashion editors in New York, and she'd requested him again, and he said something really quite casual, and she had a really bad interview. He was doing a makeup for a TV show, and she used him as the under the bus. And I know it sounds easy now, but that's his truth, and that's what happened. So when I was staying with him, he was talking to me about his experience. I was like, wow. We were staying out at Queens, and then I walked into New York, and I just loved the vibe. And I was like, you know, Stephen, I really want to work here. And so we set up 5 appointments with the best salons in New York, from John Barrett to Garen's to Bumble and Bumble, to Frederick Fekkai to Orbay. And I went to each and one of those salons, and I got offered 5 jobs. And, you know, I went to Orbay's salon, which was amazing because I worked with Orbay's assistant, Johnny Catt, at Helmet. And that was an experience in Elizabeth Arden Building. It's the 5th Avenue penthouse. Orbay, you know, it had Cupids on the walls, like Sixtine Chapel. It was so beautiful, but it was just probably a bit too double bay for me. And then I ended up at Frederick Fekkai, felt a bit David Jones for me. And then I went over to where I wanted to go, which was Bumble. And Connie, the general manager at the time, we clicked, did an exam. I brought in 3 models. I was a bit of a show off because I was in my early 20s, and I used to teach these cuts, and a bus full of Asians rocked up. I think they were Japanese, students, and they were going up to being taught, and they thought I was an educator. So they all stood around me taking photographs while I was doing my bob, and which they were getting annoyed at Bumble because I was doing my entrance exam. But anyway, so long story short, I got offered a job and to educate and to work for them and travel, basically what I was doing in Sydney, and a bit of magazines. But I came back home to Sydney to set it up with my immigration lawyer. And, you know, and basically in the middle, actually 3/4 of going through that, my mum was ill. And I, being from an immigrant family, my father spent every Sunday night talking to his father and mother back in Italy. Pattern going on. And my wife was going to move over with me. But anyway, made the decision not to go. And that's really where DCI became real for me. That's where I grew up and went, okay, so I bought the space that I'm working in now in Darlinghurst back in 99 when I came back, literally within 2 months of making this decision, which I'm doing. And I actually went into partnerships with my first boss to buy the space.
Wow. So it was a real fork in the road sort of decision there.
Yeah. And so my family means everything to me. So basically bought the space with Tanya. Which was amazing. She didn't have to do that. She did that because she was helping me. And basically I bought her out, I think about 10 years ago, her share, and they're just amazing people. I mean, they're just so generous. And then look, after that, about 2001, I got offered a job, or I got up an opportunity from KMS to launch KMS globally. And so, yeah, it was really bizarre giving up New York and then getting offered a job to then travel. So I traveled to China. I've done seminars a lot in China, a lot in Asia, around New Zealand. I've been in New Zealand many, many times. I love NZ. And I've been all the way from Blair Plenty down to Invercargill. Love it.
So good.
Yeah. And I've been around Australia many times. Very, very grateful, up to Darwin. And And so, you know, KMS really trusted me because of my background and my relationships to just go to another country and rock up, speak to, you know, have your interpreter there, have your distributor there, and just rock out really beautiful haircuts that are on brand.
What an experience.
Yeah, no one would be in the US, you know, chaperoning you. And, you know, I ended up doing a seminar on the border of Russia and China at minus 25 degrees, you know, where they build the city of ice the week of December. It's on the news. Like, it's that they built a whole city out of ice. They carve it.
Oh my goodness.
You look out of your hotel window and you see them with a horse and carriage pulling ice out of the river.
Wow.
Yeah, it was phenomenal.
Wow, wild.
Yeah, and you're a rock star. I mean, you go there and there's TV and there's interviews. They had like a wedding reception afterwards, and they all get very drunk. And I was drinking Chinese tea, you know, to make it look like sake, but because I don't drink.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah, and subsequently, the person that was the head of KMS moved over to Joico, and I'm a people.
Mm-hmm.
Then I got to work in the US with Tabitha, and I got to work with Anthony Morrison, a great guy that won Sheer Genius over there. Really great hairdresser, English hairdresser called the Londoners Salon over in the US. Really great integrity. And Tabitha, really clicked with her. Damien Carney, amazing educator.
Incredible. It's really incredible to hear so many of these names and know that you've all been through this journey with it being so intertwined with one another in this industry, where you really get to go through, like, you know, this would have been, if that was around 2020 years now of moving through this journey together in this industry. That's just so special. Amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. And Tabitha made me feel very comfortable in that Joico family. And because, you know, being Australian, and I remember once at the end of our training session, they were testing out the Americans on public speaking, and I says, "Oh, I'll give it a go." And I could see her looking at me going, "Oh, don't put yourself out there," you know, like always trying to protect me. And I was like, "No, I'll give it a, you know, I don't have any fear." And that's that's a trait of mine. I kind of throw myself in before I think about it, because I'll end up not doing it. I'm going to go to the next slide if you don't mind. Awesome. But really happy memories. You know, Joico was a great experience. I learned a lot in dealing with a brand, in terms of, you know, from design of haircut to rolling out the design of collection, making sure it's on brand. And then we got to 2006, where I was approached by GHD to be their ambassador. And this is where I learned from being, you know, a stealth educator. And I was still doing magazines a lot. By this stage, this was really the peak of my freelance career, where I realized the idea of becoming an influencer, because GHD was paying me about $45,000 a year. And this was huge money for this stage of my career. And one of the negotiations that I had with them is that I don't want to be, I had about 15 beauty editors as clients. So the beauty editor of Harper's, to Marie Claire, all these magazines were clients of ours in our salon. And what we did is, when I would use the iron on their hair or a product, we'd simply gift it to them and make it very personal and have a story for them about the brand, which I felt very organic, because I loved the brand, I loved the iron. It was very, you know, that was the height of the iron technology around this stage, and did a few launches for them, and that was really great. And at around this stage in 2007, you know, we did we started looking at the movement in online learning. And so really for me was watching where we were going from an encyclopedia generation to an internet generation. And this is where I really found that we've got to really pivot quite quick. And so I partnered with L'Oreal. I traveled to 15 countries to meet the heads of L'Oreal to find, and I really wanted to find out what their problems were from a global perspective. And then I came back and we made videos in 9 different languages for L'Oreal.
Wow.
And it was intense.
So was this to be able to meet each person, the heads of L'Oreal, you actually needed to physically travel to 15 different countries?
Yeah, I would have zoomed if the tech.
Isn't that crazy to think about what, like, I've just been watching and we have people tuning in from all over the show. Yeah. And the fact that to think about the logistics of what you actually had to go through before.
I called it, I've done it a few times in my career. I've done it about 3 or 4 times where I've gone to 10 to 15 countries in one junket. And that's 3 weeks of being away. And it's like the great race. You know, when I got to Germany, I landed late and I got to my meeting 45 minutes early. And you just don't do that to Germans, you know.
But you got there 45 minutes late?
For my meeting. Yeah. They were not happy. And I've got a German wife and I've got my German father-in-law, and when you actually get to know a lot of Germans, they're really quite warm. But in that meeting,
my dad is as well, so I am 50% too. Yeah, but very punctual.
Very extremely, and they were not impressed. And they had my website up, right? And plus they had videos up. They had a backup laptop just in case that laptop didn't work for that meeting. And that meeting went okay. It went okay. It wasn't the best meeting, but
was
then
this like halfway through the trip?
Yeah,
at the end of
halfway through the trip. And then look, probably about 6 weeks later, I went back to Germany. So I went back for another trip because we got a lot of traction with the first series. And then I went back to the UK to speak to the heads of L'Oreal in the UK. I went to Italy to meet the head of L'Oreal in Italy. And then went to Germany. And then Germany, they took me out for lunch. It was a very different reception. I thought the first meeting is just a test if you'll come back for the second meeting. But anyway, so that was great. So this whole period was to really help us understand. It was part of our innovation growth. That really ultimately what it was. And around this stage, L'Oreal introduced me to this gentleman that really changed my life. And he was teaching me a non-surgical approach to rebalancing the face. So really from a cosmetic surgeon point of view, he was in the country for a few days, well, not a few days, he was in the country for about a week. And I was saying, you need to see this guy and you and him would just hit it off. And, I thought, I'm so busy, I'll send my sister. And my sister didn't want to go. And I'm so grateful she didn't want to go because this guy did change the course, another fork in the road.
Yeah.
When I met with him, we were so synergized, and he's the way he communicated, and dissecting what women come in for when they go for surgery and how there are so many parallels in hairdressing.
Interesting.
A bit like, I'll give you an example. If a woman comes in and says, to a salon, I want a fringe, a salon hairdresser mostly try and look at their face and go, okay, if you want it, I'll give it to you. Because we're people pleasers. But what I learned is the science behind reading bone structure and rebalancing the face is that we ask the client first now is how confident and comfortable are you with your nose or your profile, if you want to use a softer word. And it gets the client more, because what a fringe does, it pushes the profile forward. And you don't want to be doing that after the fact when the client's like, unconsciously upset with herself. And so,
and it takes patience to grow something like that out as well.
Yeah, there's a bit of passive aggressiveness that comes out afterwards, and the client goes, "It's definitely not you." But that's all about that impulse buying in that moment. And I really it taught me to put some science behind our techniques.
Yeah,
and
amazing.
that just changed the way I design haircuts now. We now teach to cut shape in and around bone structure and rebalance the client's face to be more sustainable. So and this is really what led me to giving more value. People were starting to pay me more for, offering in terms of haircuts. I realized on photo shoots, I was earning so much an hour when I was earning freelancing. And when I'd come to the salon, I'd spend the same time on my client, and most hairdressers weren't charging a lot for their time. I just couldn't understand that. I couldn't understand why I'd go from a job on a shoot to dealing with someone personally that I felt that actually was more important than a page in a magazine. And so I started to go, okay, well, I'm going to charge more because I'm giving more information, time. And so we really started to focus on price and our positioning as well. I was positioning myself as a hairdresser. And instead of doing maybe 10 clients a day, I was doing 7 clients a day. I wasn't burning myself out. And then that led me to launching Cloud9, which was the original owners of GHD. And that was a beautiful product to launch. And a great experience in terms of, working with that team. So I'll get you to the next slide. So then this led us to 2009 launching Michael. And my daughter just said this to me this afternoon, which I thought was really interesting. I've got an 11-year-old daughter. And she said, Dad, were you the founder of Michael? Because she's searching a lot online. And I was like, yeah. And she's like, I don't believe it. I don't believe it. And I was like, and she was born in 2009, this is hilarious.
Oh, so gorgeous for her to discover that on her own as well. Doing that research into it. What a discovery.
Yeah, absolutely. Her other sister at the launch of Michael was probably about 4 years old, and we made her a shirt, I love Michael, and she was on stage giving away prizes. It was a great experience. It was great.
What a way to win some hearts.
Yeah.
That's a marketing tactic for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, yeah. She had a whole chest pump and everything. She was doing really good. But yeah, Michael, what I found when I was with GHD and Cloud9 is I felt that I love a pin curl set and a flat curl. So just briefly, I started experimenting with how can we create more of an express type of curl for the client to do and for the head to be more consistent. And so we developed and patented this flat roller and we launched it. We painted in about 31 countries. And I traveled my butt off and I became a distributor at that point. And so, and meanwhile, through all of this, we're still teaching.
Wow.
We're still doing shoots, still on the stealth with teaching. I didn't want anyone to still know on fashion that I was doing teaching.
And all in person, like all of that being in-person teaching too, yeah?
Yeah. And we didn't have social. We didn't take on board social until about 2012. And so it wasn't something that we were promoting. So I didn't go into any hairdressing awards before this because I didn't want anyone to know that I was a teacher or educator in fashion. And so Michael really taught me a lot about business. Michael taught me a lot about partnerships. I built some great relationships, going to London and I had 4 meetings in the one day. My first meeting was with Richard Ward, Kate Middleton's hairdresser. I spent 2 hours with Richard. Richard was trying to convince me to get Michael on the shopping channel over there, the TV stand, to do it. Beautiful guy, really successful business in Sloane Square, and a dynamic person. And my second meeting was with Harrods in London. And Harrods had 240 staff on the top floor of Harrods. And it's an amazing experience. And I got to share with them and I walked out of there and they said, oh, can we order 15,000 units after training them?
Wow.
And we didn't even have that many units in the country. And then my next meeting was with the head of Remington, because we were also working with Remington on another project. I had just come from Chicago, which I'd met with Remington globally. And this is all out of hairdressing, man. Like I just laugh, I've learned. I used to go to a bus on the way to school. I used to be on my bus thinking these people, from elderly pensioners to young people, when I was going to work, these people were all heading to a hair event. I spent most of my teenage years catching a bus to work thinking imagining we're all going to this hair event. And then I find myself years later, deja vu, all heading to a hair event.
Yeah, wow.
So Michael, so in summary, Michael was really teaching me about innovation and launching. That led me to launching Alterna, which is a really beautiful luxe brand that I know Schwarzkopf now has, which was great. And then really in 2013, that's when we started to see a shift in understanding subscription education.
Right.
I felt that hairdressers were going to courses and they didn't quite get it. And you knew when they left, it was just too much information or it was over their head. They probably weren't feeling good that day. And developed subscription education where our mentor program was our first one, where hairdressers come to us between February and November, 10 sessions for the year. We pre-record the cut. We put it on behind our website in a secured password area. And it's an access available for them to access the whole year so they can go back as a resource library and check out the haircut step by steps. So they don't have to put pressure on themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was one of the best things I've ever done.
And so was this like, in terms of subscription education, had many others started doing this back in 2013, or was this seen it around very much?
No one. Veronica, my wife, Paul Seville was over here doing some classes from New Zealand. And I really loved it. I think he did it in 4 sessions. He was doing some traveling in 4 sessions. He would come over in a month. And I really liked that idea. And I thought, okay, this is great. This is a great idea. I'll do it over 10 months. And what it did is it just helps me hold the hairdresser's hand through their most challenging. It's really challenging for a hairdresser from February to November, dealing with, your own life and then having to deal with clients that are coming from very different places into the salon and getting through winter, which is a really brutal part to get through because people are coming in not so great mood.
Yeah, absolutely.
So my role was to help them with a great technique, but not only that, designing cuts and shapes for people, really designing the modality and the archetype behind that haircut, who suits that haircut. So they've got a toolbox by the end of the year. So they don't have to think too much in the salon. They can start to have more fun because they're armed with all these tools. Let me go to the next slide. These shoots in the background are some of the shoots that I did. in this journey and around these times. So launching in 2014, we felt that in the first year that hairdressers were coming to us that perhaps in their apprenticeship, and the mentor program's designed for sophisticated or experienced hairdressers. And so we found that we need to develop a program that's purely for hairdressers that want to be retrained. So we developed Elevate, which is more classic cutting, very tight, very minimal, very precise, teaching them how to do expensive hair, where the mentors advanced cutting, advanced thinking, and ensuring that your work can't be copied. So we teach them, and ultimately this all comes down to me understanding through my stylist friends, and stylists being on magazines, is that we had to learn in hairdressing, what is our currency?
Yeah.
What's our currency? So when a client leaves the salon, how many times is she getting annoyed about, you've got amazing hair? And so at this stage in my career, I started to realize the value of the currency that I had, not only as an educator, but as a hairdresser. So I think at this stage, I was starting to charge up around $200 for a haircut. And I started to really say to my guests, I'm really going to give you more of my attention. I don't leave my guests for that whole time that I'm with them, because I felt that my skill set was really matching what I believed. And it developed a beautiful clientele. And then that led me through to social media. 2013 or 12, we started getting hairdressers from New York and London reaching out saying, when are you coming over here? So I went over to London, taught a great group called Blushes out at Cheltenham. They're a really great group. And then went over to New York and hosted our first mentor program in New York. And Nick Ambrosio was awesome to host us in his salon, which is great. And then subsequently, the following year, we won Educator of the Year. And this was probably one of the highlights for myself as an adult in hairdressing, because my wife was with me. In my speech, I did thank Frank Burgermeister. Frank passed away, I think, a few years before this. And so I wanted to actually acknowledge the fact that, I had told him this story. This whole story is on his website, by the way, and his salon's still functioning.
Wow.
I told Frank years later that he's the reason I got into it. He had no idea. I was this little boy in the back of the room, and you actually put me on a different trajectory by your passion and your enthusiasm. And so
those forks in the road, I feel like that's the third one we've talked about today, one of those really key turning points.
Yeah. And we became good friends just before he passed. And so when I won the award, I dedicated that to him, saying thank you, because it was something that, I was very humble. And I think I won an award late in my career, I think because I was probably ready to receive an award egoically.
I was just going to ask, what was that like for you, receiving an award like this at that stage in your career?
Yeah, it was a lot, because a lot of people that I had taught before that, a lot of people I had trained had won this award many times. And we were very supportive for them. And my wife kept on saying, go in them. And I was like, no, I really don't want to, because I've got this thing with passion and I don't want to interfere with that. But by this stage, I had stopped doing that.
Yeah.
So I got to a point, I couldn't be on a shoot for 8 hours to 9 hours, let alone 12 hours or 16 hours. My tolerance level was reducing on a shoot. So unless I was working with people that I really loved, and that was few and far between, you can't, you're only the hairdresser, you can't control who you work with on a shoot. And so then at this stage, I directed all my energy. So I only shoot for myself now or privately with clients that I like. And it's got to be a fun project. But I'll get you to the next slide, because it gets really fun from here. And so then the following year, we won business education with the AHFAs. And, this award, this was a very challenging year for us. It was a great award. I mean, David Manor, what he does for the hair industry with the AHFAs, I truly believe raises the bar in every level for industry awards and recognition. But about 4 days before this, my closest friend passed away.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So no, it's okay. But I didn't want to go to the awards, and I was trying to beg my wife, can she go? And my wife's like, don't be, I was trying to say, can you go with my daughter? And she's like, no. And so I went, and Emiliano Vitali, which is my best friend, was with me.
Actually with us. He has tuned in. I saw him pop up before, so he's here.
I've been at every table for every time he's been an award winner. He won Hairdresser of the Year, I think in 2015 2014. And so, you know, I have, Emiliano and I started at the same time and used to compete against each other. And this guy's probably he is the most genuine person I know. And my other really best friend was presenting the award this night, Clive Allwright. And we had no idea. We're sitting on the same table and we had no idea. And he didn't know until he went backstage. So it was a great night to unwind. And then really from here, the next year, Dyson approached me to launch their supersonic dryer in Melbourne at Hair Expo, which was great. I love technology. And this is the interesting how I met Timely.
Woohoo!
Yeah, so I was at Brisbane Hair Expo and I was doing this seminar and a private seminar. And there was two people in the front row that just were smiling the whole presentation. And I just kept on, and at the end of the seminar, they walked over to us saying, fabulous seminar. Everything you spoke about in this seminar that you feel that the industry needs with technology, we are, right? So she said, I said, what do you mean? She goes, well, we're a software company. And I'd never heard of Timely before this. And she said, can you give us a call or we'll reach out to you? So she gave me a card and I didn't reach out. She gave me a sample product to use. I didn't use it for 4 months, which was the time that it was supposed to be used. And my wife really said, Veronica's got the best integrity of anyone I know. Veronica said, look, you actually have to say to these people, yes or no, are you interested or not? And I hadn't even looked at the product. And so she forced me to look at the product and I loved it. Yeah. She just forced me to look at it, get it on my radar because I was very distracted with things that are more, you know, in front of us. And I played with it and I really liked it. And then we did a test to merge our clients with it. It was seamless. And the experience, and it really blew me away at having my, you know, again, 2018, to have my clientele in my pocket and be able to walk around and not be a slave to coming into the salon to check out who I was doing that day, who booked in online overnight to come in. And, you know, that's where we used to be. I felt that, you know, the industry, or not the industry, the world was catching up in such a rapid pace, but hairdressing wasn't. We were still archaic in terms of
technology wise.
So I was on stage actually bitching about if we had a company that did this and did this, and because I was talking about, you know, checking clients out, sitting next to them, not at a front desk anymore in this seminar, you know, and doing all that. And this, you know, Anna, the girl that I was talking to, was like, don't worry, calm down, we'll do all of this. And then I met Georgie, and Georgie's a gun. And Georgie, we did this Timely tour, and Georgie saw how passionate I was in consultations. And really, you know, from that point, I shared with Georgie, we've been doing our consult forms for about 11 years at this stage. Georgie went, what a great idea. And she brought it back to Ryan and the team. And they said, let's build a whole app, a standard-alone app, free for the industry, which blew me away. And we then did a tour around Australia. We had about 800-900 people attend this event. That was like the great race.
I came to the one in Melbourne. Yes.
Yeah, that was great. That was like the great race, man. It was like, and I had done a tour for the AHC a few years before with Sandy Chong, and it was amazing. But, you know, one thing this industry has, and I will say, it's a strong sense of community.
Absolutely.
I really love, you know, people that are successful or on their way to being successful. They're working really hard. Everyone's very open to sharing their story, sharing their experience. And so in that tour, we walked around, we traveled around and we shared how to use the Consult app, and it's all for free. And it was great. It was a really big success. It's changed. I mean, we want to be a paperless society and we want to be sustainable. So to get rid of paper and put it on digital was phenomenal. So a massive thank you to Ryan.
Oh, that's so great. That's amazing. I love how, as well, from this, you know, it was just the right time, the right place. Like, I'm sure we would have found each other eventually, but for that to be the two people in the front row just beaming up at you, being like, yes.
Because everything I was talking about in that seminar, that you had to do, you know, I want my staff to, when someone says to them when they're out, you got beautiful hair, I want my staff to feel really confident to say, hey, I can do your hair. And make a booking right there and then.
Yeah, absolutely. And having the knowledge of when it's time to work.
Instead of missing an opportunity. Yeah, absolutely. And so then this led me to, you know, this between 2017 and 18, I had lost about 4 people in my life. So this was probably my biggest growth year as a person. And, you know, my grandmother had passed away, my neighbor had passed away, and Gino Fasano passed away. And Gino has a very successful salon called Portfolio Hair, which I'm teaching them next Tuesday night. And Gino just sort of typified what a hardworking, fun, sharing, giving hairdresser. And when he passed, I spoke to his son, Justin, and his business partner, Anthony. And I said, look, I really would like to turn, all this grief into something that we can cherish. And that's a scholarship. And so we launched in 2018. We've had about 9 people come through on the scholarship, fully funded by us. It's not about money. And we teach them for the whole year in one of our programs, whether it be Elevate or Mentor. And, I'm really proud to say next year is the first year we're not offering it to apprentices. We're opening it up to any year. It's always been for apprentices. So we felt that a lot of seniors wanted to get involved and a lot of qualified hairdressers. And we felt that we were narrowing it down to just apprentices. So it could be an apprentice or a qualified hairdresser. And if they go to our website, they'll see how all the details are up there and how they can log in.
Well, what we can actually do after this is I will grab the link specifically to that, and I can share that and I'll pop it up into the description above this video so anyone watching can.
Yeah, that's great. That's a passion project from us. And I think every time I go back to Portfolio and I talk to the Portfolio team about what the scholarship recipients are doing and how well they're doing. Like right now, we've got Simon at Joey Scandizzo Salon in Melbourne that's won it for 2020. And Simon's just a really beautiful, talented, very talented young man. So I'll get to go to the next slide.
Awesome.
And this leads us through to 2019, which feels like a lifetime ago. So in 2019, we launched a new salon concept. So we went from having a salon to actually having a canvas, and we created the space to now having hairdressers come in. There are other freelancers come in and share the space with us. So there are other people that do magazines. I love people around us that are very like-minded. Education is now taking up a huge, a big chunk of my time, which is great. But I felt that I either had to be a salon hairdresser or an educator. And I felt the way for me to do both was to allow my salon to be a canvas for other hairdressers to work in that potentially that might work for me. So we did up the space. It looks beautiful. I'm looking at it right now. It looks amazing. And then 2019, we won Educator of the Year again for AHC. Oh, sorry, not AHC. David will kill me. For the trophies right behind that wall behind it. For AHFAs. I have always a problem with aligning that acronym. With the AHFAs, and that was an amazing night. That was really unexpected. I have a low expectation when I go to these events, even though we do, 2019, I'll give you a summary of what we did that year. We traveled 210,000 kilometers around Australia, just teaching. We taught over, we were exposed to 2,500 hairdressers face to face. And, every year for me just seems to get better. And I'm very grateful. We're up to our 5th generation in salons teaching them. So we've taught the owner back in, 20 years ago, and they've sent every manager, every staff, and we're very grateful to bring them on this journey. And so ultimately this year we were hit with 2020. We've all been experiencing, really challenging times, really reflective times on how much, because, we're not traveling. Our salon was shut down for probably about 4 months. 3 to 4 months. And in this time, at the beginning of the pandemic, probably about the first 3 weeks, Emiliano and myself, Clive, were chatting every day for 4 months, every day. And It was probably the best think tank I've ever been involved in. The ideas, we were sort of watching the industry from afar, what was going on. And I think in the first 2 weeks, I just thought, I was on my lounge and I was sitting there, I was thinking, wow, we've got a library with about, 103 step-by-step videos that we have people subscribe to it for the year. And every year we're uploading new content. And I just thought, I really felt like I wanted to give things away. And so I said to my wife, I know you're going to really probably think I'm really out there, but I really want to help, particularly what I was seeing in America and the UK. And so we then launched an initiative to open up our entire library free of charge to hairdressers globally. And that's giving you all away the step-by-steps. and until the end of the year. And so at first it was 6 months, we extended to the end of the year. And so I'm really pleased to say, and the messages, they're still coming. It's amazing. We probably about just over 20,000 hairdressers have logged in and gone into the back end library. And it's a bit like Netflix. You can go back and watch an old film, or you can go and watch something quite current. And you know, our old classic coloring, we had a beautiful colorist, Leah May, do some really great coloring techniques. Our colorist from Sassoons did some beautiful color work. And again, that was just to pay it forward for the industry, to say that, you know, if we put money aside through this time and just open up an opportunity to refresh, reset, and come out of this stronger with more confidence. And that for me, and I remember the night we pressed go on this, I had this feeling of, wow, you know, all my CEO clients and managing director clients would probably say, you're an absolute fool for doing this. And that really came over me, thinking we weren't earning an income just like everyone else. But I felt morally really connected to try and help my peers, and it wasn't about money. And I'm really proud that, you know, my wife accepted that and she embraced it, and our team did. But the feedback we get, oh my God, particularly from the UK and America.
Well, I feel like this is just, you know, this shows the community. It really does. That you would not do this unless you felt that connection to the community, right? Like,
yes,
you know, it's coming from a place inside and your heart where you're putting it out. And I remember actually back at because when exactly was it that you turned that on?
Back in March.
Crazy. I remember hearing about this, and I think we wanted to share it on socials as well. And I remember hearing about it. I can't believe that was right at the start, like back in March. It is wild how fast time has flown through this, but the fact that people have been able, and no one knew that it would last for this long with, you know, so many people being kept in lockdown, but the fact that people have been able to, for what is that now, 7 months.
Oh.
I know 7 months been able to access something like this to continue educating through this time. That is what is helping, you know, our industry to continue to flourish, which is amazing. It's awesome.
Yeah, and I feel really connected, and I felt it's the same thing, you know, with COVID coming along. I, you know, probably catch about 4 planes a week, and out of the month, 3 weeks of the month I'm away, and I've got a really beautiful family. Like, you know, when I'm home, I have to be at dinner at the dinner table Thursdays, Fridays, Saturday nights when I'm traveling, and it really connected to me, my family, my beautiful wife, my girls. I've never spent so much time together with my family. It took about 2 weeks to assimilate.
Did it? Yeah.
It was very challenging the first 2 weeks because you know, we have a beautiful place. But I just found the first 2 weeks very challenging because
I don't think you're alone in that for many households. Yeah, no.
I've got a 15-year-old, and my 15-year-old is beautiful. She's a very talented singer. She's won a scholarship next year at school.
Oh,
and
amazing.
yeah, she's very talented, but she's coming into herself at the moment. And I'm getting to know, I got to know her through, thanks to COVID, as a woman, a young woman.
Yeah,
and
so special.
Yeah, and I've learned to keep my distance and giving her space now. And I've got an 11-year-old that's about to, you know, enter a whole new phase. So, and it's thanks to COVID. Like, my relationship with my wife, my #1 fan and biggest supporter, and you know, just getting connected with the people that I love. And you know, really out of all this, you know, if anyone's, you know, I suppose we've gone through some really hard times, and I've watched people really battle, but you know, I get really a lot of strength from people like my mom. My mum's still alive and she's doing well. I mean, she's fighting. She's going through another bout of ill health at the moment, but she's an absolute trooper. And when I speak to her daily, and I'm thinking she has every reason to be unhappy.
Yeah.
She's one of the most positive people I know. And she is always looking at the positive and always looking at, you know, to be grateful. Gratitude.
Close to you? Like, is she in the same city at the moment?
Yeah, she is. But with her health at the moment, we can't go over and visit her a lot, but we're all good. We're all
Yeah.
good. I have a very strong connection with my mum and my dad. But I just find that, you know, every day when we speak, she's just so optimistic and positive. And from her lens, gives me a lot of confidence in terms of how I then translate that onto people that I teach. Because I was teaching Melbourne this week, and, you know, I know a lot of people are very, you know, wanting to get out of their homes and get back to connecting with clients.
Oh, yes. Yep.
And connecting with people, you know, not so much clients, just people.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so what we're going to, and I'll get you to go to the next slide if you don't mind. What we're doing next is that this whole journey that we're going on in these 8 weeks. So this first session that we've done tonight was to really walk everyone through, I suppose, when I spoke to Timely early on, they were like, well, what sort of experience have you had? I don't think our community, you know, knows the full depth. And so it was suggested that we started off tonight with a bit of background and experience. But what I'm really excited about is, as of next week on the 14th, we're going to be taking on a journey like no other. And this is all about paying it forward. And, you know, I don't get paid from Timely. This is not about a payment. Actually, I've never been paid by Timely. And I always refer that to Ryan. And I'm very transparent. It's because I absolutely love that this company pivots so quickly. You know, what they've got coming up and what they do as far as listening to industry inspires me. And I absolutely love the core team, and, you know, their beliefs and my beliefs as a company and as a person are very like-minded. So what we've put together over the next 8 weeks is phenomenal. And what you'll get as a bonus is phenomenal. So I can't wait to get started next week and really dig deep. Next week's session is going to be class 2, Be the Change. I do focus a lot on the hair psychology behind what we do, because I just feel that in hairdressing, we can focus so much on the creative side and not enough on how to people manage. More importantly, how to manage yourself. Because we got through, you know, we come out of school as hairdressers quite creative, and we're thrust in front of people, and we then have a business, and no one teaches us how to do these things, and we do them organically, and we make mistakes and we learn that university of life. But I just feel that when I put these presentations together, particularly this one, it's really designed to help you get more connected with you. And then ultimately, once we get through that, then ultimately how fundamentally to get more connected to our clients. Because each client coming into us is supporting our lifestyle, supporting your future, paying for your next holiday when we can finally have one. And, you know, I don't see them as annoying. I don't see clients as a burden. I see my clients as my extended family. But I do have boundaries around my clientele, because I love my clientele, and lifelong clientele. But when you get a new client coming in, you know, they're very different. You've got to have boundaries, got to have process, and you've got to have fun. And hopefully we can bring that to you over the next 8 weeks.
Amazing. Oh, wow. Well, honestly, what a way for us to kick things off. Now, I can see that we've had a bunch of people come and join, and there's been some, I'll share these with you after, Dario. There's been some amazing people sharing comments on the journey that you've just shared as well, and where they've had, you know, those moments with you. So
Oh, wow.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us for class 1. And what we will do is we will pop up these events on our Facebook page so that you can join those, see what's coming up, make sure that you get those reminders, and you can join us every Wednesday. So
I'm excited. I want to start tonight.
I feel like, honestly, it'd be quite easy to just keep going. I know that we've gone a little bit over time for everyone. So thank you for joining us. That was an amazing story, Dario. And we hope you all have a fabulous rest of your day over in the UK, evening, Australia, New Zealand, and we'll see you next Wednesday.
Okay, high five.